The history of environmental justice in Kettleman City goes back to the mid 80s, late 80s, when the people in Kettleman City formed a group called El Pueblo para el Aire y Agua Limpia de Kettleman City in response to a proposed toxic waste incinerator. And it was a really good time in Kettleman City. People were very united in fighting this project. They were moved by the fact that it was systemic racism, the way that they chose the siting of projects like this. It wasn't because of the geology or that there wasn't any other place to put it. It was because of the very specific characteristics that the town had, low income, a high poverty, low education, where people don't speak English. And I think the fact that this company was willing to site this project where a community was facing all these other struggles, it really struck a nerve with people. And so they formed a group. My parents, Ramon and Mary Lou Mares, were part of the people that formed the group, and they were successful. The incinerator wasn't built because the company gave in. It wasn't because state agencies or federal agencies said, oh, this is a bad idea for a vulnerable community. It was because of the power of the people wore down the company, and they decided not to build it. So that was a great victory for the small community, and I think it was the beginning of a long history of environmental justice activism in Kettleman City. After the incinerator victory, activism dropped off a little bit. I think people became complacent. But then in the early 2000s, there was another struggle. We found out that Chemical Waste Management, Kettleman Hills, had proposed an expansion that would almost triple the size of the dump. And people were very concerned. People thought that there was a lot of sick people in Kettleman City, a lot of kids with asthma. There was some cases of cancer. So at that time, El Pueblo para el Aire y Agua Limpia de Kettleman City and Green Action out of San Francisco, Green Action for Health and Environmental Justice, decided to do a door-to-door health survey. And we found at that time that there had been 13 children born over a 14-month period with birth defects, including 5 children with cleft palate, and 3 of those children passed away. So we asked the state and local officials to investigate prior to approving this huge expansion of the dump. It just felt like the right thing to do before adding more environmental burden to the community. And at first we were totally rebuffed. We were told that those children didn't really exist. They weren't born in Kettleman City. We went to many meetings, many hearings where employees from the plant yelled. They yelled insults at us or told us that we were after money, that we were trying to shut down progress in the town, that we didn't want jobs. But we were really concerned, and finally, after we got some media coverage of the situation, the state decided to investigate. However, that investigation involved an 18-page questionnaire. There was never any biomonitoring done. No blood samples were taken, no hair sample, skin, tissue, anything like that. And of course, from there they determined that although they didn't know what had caused the birth defects, they were sure that it wasn't the toxic waste dump, and they went ahead and used that to justify the approval of the dump. And it was really disheartening at that time. It was really tough on the community. 4 years ago, El Pueblo para el Aire y Agua Limpia de Kettleman City and the state agencies, DTSC and Cali PA, signed a civil rights agreement that would take into account civil rights and language access issues going forward when there was permits up for Kettleman City. And so to this day, we continue to make sure that that agreement is enforced. We're also doing education of young people in Kettleman City through leadership academies. We're doing community air monitoring, and we continue to watchdog environmental justice issues in the community. And as you will see through our toxic tour, there's still so many issues in Kettleman City, and so we continue our struggle with small victories, big victories, some setbacks, but here we are after 30 years still in the environmental justice movement. So we hope that that struggle continues and that we eventually achieve, through our hard work and the community support, that we achieve environmental justice for the people of Kettleman City. Cal EPA's own Cal EnviroScreen puts Kettleman City in the top 10% of environmentally vulnerable communities. Basically, that means that in addition to being a town that faces high poverty rates, low educational attainment, a high rate of unemployment, and linguistic isolation, we are burdened with multiple sources of pollution. Located on the cross between Highway 41 and Interstate 5, we have thousands of vehicles crossing through the town. These vehicles include many diesel trucks. In fact, because we are in such a central location in the state, we have multiple warehouses and various shipping facilities. We're currently home to the largest FedEx transfer station in California. All these trucks contribute to our bad air quality, which is very detrimental to our residents with asthma. Ironically, we're also home to a large, luxurious Tesla charging station. Although we love the idea of electric vehicles, most of these luxury vehicles are unattainable for our residents. It's a nice thought, though. Going back to the trucks, many of these diesel trucks are bound for our local hazardous waste landfill, which is the largest toxic waste landfill in the western United States. Although Cal EnviroScreen doesn't account for such a facility in its screening tool, it's definitely something that concerns local residents. This was confirmed by a survey of the community that was paid for by ChemWaste itself. People said that the number one concern was contaminated water, but right after that, concern about being neighbors to a large toxic waste landfill was concern number 2. Kettleman City is an agricultural community. It's surrounded on 3 sides by almond orchards. It's a beautiful sight to see the trees in the spring when they're in bloom. But that beauty is also dangerous. They're constantly spraying chemicals on this crop. Additionally, during harvest, the dust that's created by the harvesting machines is very detrimental to our air quality. It's also dangerous for the people that are driving through it. Once again, due to Kettleman City's central location, we're also home to a large compost facility located 4 miles outside of town, where they take in human waste from the Los Angeles Sanitation District. This human waste is brought in as biosolids and converted into compost. Although the project is deemed green and they use modern techniques for the compost processing, the idea that human waste is shipped in from 3 hours away to our little community is kind of maddening. It's another burden for an overburdened community. Kettleman City was subjected to contaminated well water for many, many years. Our town's well waters were contaminated with benzene and arsenic. Although arsenic is naturally occurring, the benzene was a residual left over from the oil rush days that started the town. For years, residents paid a high water rate for water that was undrinkable. In the past few years, the state provided the community with bottled drinking water. Recently, after years and years of working with agencies and local officials, we have switched over to a water treatment facility which treats water from the local California aqueduct. This aqueduct also happens to provide clean drinking water for the Los Angeles area. It's nice that we are finally able to partake of this cleaner water source that was literally running through our backyard.
Kettleman City is located 20 miles away from the city of Avenal. Recently, the residents of Kettleman City, in solidarity with the Avenal residents, have advocated for the closure of the Avenal Municipal Waste Landfill. This landfill has become a giant, disgusting eyesore and is a mountain of trash that is located very close to the homes of residents. We will continue to help the residents of Avenal until the dump is no longer a threat to the health and well-being of its residents.
So that's it for our toxic tour of Kettleman City. It's a small town with a lot of problems, but at the end of the day, it's home, and the people that live here are literally and figuratively family. We have the same hopes and dreams as people everywhere. Whether we dream those dreams in English or Spanish, it doesn't matter. What's important is that we take care of our environment and make it a healthy, happy place for all.